Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today in support of HB 6417 regarding background checks. My name is Greg Howard, and I am a member of this General Assembly serving my first term in our House of Representatives. I'm a 19-year police veteran, having served these last 5 years of my career as a detective, where I've had the unfortunate experience of investigating crimes against children. Outside of these obligations, I'm the president of Stonington Youth Football and Cheer, a nonprofit organization for tackle football and cheerleading in my district. I'm very proud of my program, most notably its Play for Free status. Since 2018, Stonington Youth Football has not collected a single registration fee for any participant. Our annual budget is just under $30,000 per year, all of which comes from fundraising. This Play for Free status has allowed children of all socioeconomic statuses to participate, have fun, exercise, and most importantly, be around positive mentors that will have long-lasting positive impact on the nearly 160 kids that participate in our program. Due to my 8 divisions, in 2019, I had over 40 coaches who volunteered with us. Each of these 40 coaches was subjected to a background check through a third-party vendor. Today, that company charges $16 per person to conduct a social security number trace, a query of the sex offender registry, global watch list, and national criminal search. I know these background checks are not required, and I know that in many organizations they are not being done. It is important to know that simply having some criminal record does not preclude someone from volunteering with us. We have had volunteers with data misdemeanor offenses that served us and our children very well. Our board of directors carefully considers any applicant with any history to determine the suitability. In the course of my career, I have conducted numerous background checks on police officers, hundreds of background checks on firearm permit applicants, and I currently do fingerprinting for public school applicants in my town. I know what it takes to run a youth organization. I know how background checks work, and I know all too well the devastating effect that can occur from unsuitable adults having access to children. I urge you all to support this legislation, and I am happy to take questions today or any time that the members of this committee feel that my experience may be useful. Thank you.
Thanks, Representative. I just, since we have a lot of bills on the agenda today, I'm assuming you're talking about the background checks for camps, correct?
Yes, if I had the bill number wrong, I apologize. I know it changed, but I believe it's 6417. That was my intent.
Gotcha. Okay. So I have a few questions, if you don't mind.
I do not mind at all.
There has been some pushback on the idea of including municipal camps in this legislation. So let me ask you this. Do you believe if we did exclude them from the legislation, that someone who does not want to subject themselves to a background check would ultimately skip the licensed camps and just go straight to the municipal camps where they don't have to do a background check?
Undoubtedly. I have a unique position in my town. Because I've been a policeman here for 2 decades, I know a whole lot about a whole lot of people. I have had people who wanted to volunteer in our program who I have said, we conduct a background check, and I think we both know how that's going to go, and they choose not to apply. The point that I'm driving at to yours, Madam Chair, is yes, if people know that background checks are being done and they know they have a background that will exclude them, they will seek other places for sure.
And in your line of work, you get to unfortunately see kind of what we call the ugly underbelly, right?
Sure.
And so one question that I have is, if someone is intent on abusing a child, if they are seeking out, whether it be a job, a paid position, or a volunteer position, they're seeking out working with children. Do you believe that any amount of training regarding, hey, don't abuse children, do you believe that any amount of training is going to change their mind?
Well, you know, that's a good question, and it's an onion that needs to be peeled back on several levels. But in essence, I'll tell you my experience as a police officer. It's not all that common to find eclectic criminals. For example, you get a criminal history, you'll notice a bunch of larcenies, burglaries, robberies, or you'll notice a bunch of violence offenses, or a bunch of domestics, or alcohol-related offenses. Very uncommon to see a hodgepodge of all of that. It happens, but it's not the norm. So when you take that into concern of criminal histories, especially of sexual offenders, I think that certainly if they're a sexual offender, they're going to be a sexual offender. There's something in their mind or their person that allows them to commit those crimes against children. And I think to your point that is going to be the way.
Yeah. So I believe that you have put forward, please correct me if I'm wrong, you've put forward legislation that would subject coaches to these background checks because it's not currently in statute, correct?
Yes, that legislation is not on your agenda today, but certainly they are very close cousins, right? But
yes, they are.
But yes, I have put that forward.
So a lot of the feedback that I've been receiving outside of the legislature is, oh, but we take safe sport, and so coaches know what is appropriate behavior and what is not appropriate behavior. But in your testimony of the question I just asked a few minutes ago is that you agree with me that no amount of training is going to actually stop someone from abusing if that's what they're intent on doing, correct?
That's correct. And it's important to know too, Madam Chair, that many sex offenders are acquaintances of their victims, especially when we're talking about youth. And they're able to do that because they're sly enough to go through a process that we call grooming in my field. And what that means is they don't run out and sexually assault a child like that. Okay. What they do is they establish a relationship of trust with not only the child, but the parents and any person overseeing that person. And that allows them the gateway, if you will, to have access to that child where they can be alone with them, because that's when the actual assault takes place. And I will tell you from my experience that a brief story, if you'll indulge me for just a moment.
Please.
Where I had a young man who plays football for me, 9 years old, and he was staying with his grandmother. His mother was out of town. And I got a phone call late at night from mom saying there's some incidents going on in the neighborhood where he lives, and he's very nervous. He's scared. He doesn't want to stay with grandma anymore. He wants to be with you. Can you please go get him? I know it's late. Now, of course, I said yes. I got in my car. I picked him up, brought him here. He spent the night here with my family, and my wife got him ready for school in the morning. Now, fortunately, my wife and I are very well intended. We never hurt anybody. But that's the sort of trust that parents have in their coaches. And you can see in that instance, if I had ill intent, the access that I would have. And I'm not criticizing this mother, right? She's known me and et cetera. But that you can see how that can go sideways in a hurry, especially when you're talking about members of the population that are more vulnerable on a variety of scales. Yes. In fact, I'll tell you, as you see the amount of people that volunteer in these programs drop off, as you've seen in the last several years, there's communication among pedophiles where that's a hotbed. These folks, illicit and horrific as their activities may be, they don't operate a whole lot different than the rest of us. For example, Representative, you and I were both fishermen. We would maybe have a discussion about the easiest place to catch fish, where the most fish are, et cetera. And I think that it's important to know that all sorts of criminals have these networks that you may not be aware of, whether we're talking narcotics or in the context of this, pedophilia, where, yes, they share their information. And I think that is a place where they could do it. And I'll tell you, getting volunteers is not easy. And maybe to the chairwoman's point, standing up and tell people you don't belong here is not easy. It's not fun. It doesn't make you very popular. But, I have a program to run and my name's on it. And every one of those 160 kids are my responsibility. So we run our background checks and we keep track of coaches that are new, et cetera. So